I think it's a lost Jedi temple.
There's a familiarity to Star Wars Skeleton Crew that you can feel in your bones. Disney Plus's latest spin-off series is playing with a pointedly familiar premise, but it finds something compelling to do with the fact that unless you're the same age as its young cast, you've probably seen something very much like this Kids vs. Pirates adventure before. It could all very easily verge into obnoxiousness, but it gracefully manages to avoid that in the first 2 of 8 episodes, thanks to the way it hints at something under the surface.
Don't you ever want to do anything exciting? Like what? A real adventure. No more pretend. What if we could go anywhere we want in the whole galaxy?
That familiar feeling comes from a nostalgic vibe that Skeleton Crew proudly wears on its sleeve. The plot follows a group of kids, each with at least one easily identifiable defining personality trait, who strike out in search of excitement and eventually find themselves aboard a pirate ship while on the run from bloodthirsty criminals. Yes, it's all explicitly inspired by the Goonies, but also any number of kid-friendly or at least kid-starring adventures like E.T. or Stranger Things. Though an opening scene of pirate brutality makes it clear that this show isn't exclusively for the littlest Star Wars fans in the family.
'Tis dangerous out there in space.
The plucky kids of Skeleton Crew live on the off-putting and vaguely ominous suburban sprawl planet called At Attin, where parents work late and leave their kids at home alone after school, where the cool kids race bikes, and where everyone has a yard, a lawnmower, and a 2-car garage. You get the sense that there's a space target just down the road, and that the adults are concerned about their New Republic property taxes. We're in the same post-Imperial, pre-The Force Awakens time period as The Mandalorian, by the way. Or you would think that if there's anyone old enough to be scruffy looking on At Attin. That's one of the first things that suggests that there's something interesting and perhaps genuinely smart happening here. Other than the parents of the main kid, Wim, played by Ravi Cabot-Conyers, and his Max Rebo-style elephant boy pal, played by Robert Timothy Smith, doing his best Milhouse impression.
Any questions?
What if, say, someone missed their tram, so they're taking a shortcut
Sit down, student.
These kids hardly ever seem to encounter any adults. Their bus driver is a droid. Their teacher is a droid. The security guards watching the school are droids. And the only grown-up at school is a woman who gives the kids a primer on the joy of contributing to the great work of At Attin with boring, bureaucratic government jobs. Even Jude Law, Skeleton Crew's main adult cast member, makes only the briefest of appearances in the premiere episodes.
I'll get you home. But we have to move fast.
What do you think it is?
There are a lot of questions surrounding A Strange Hatch, which is perhaps a not-so-subtle nod to the TV work of Star Wars' own J.J. Abrams. It takes some assistance from 2 more At Attin kids to get going on that. Ryan Kiera Armstrong's Fern has a bad attitude, but is very smart and good at school. And her friend KB, played by Kiriana Crater, has a techie headset and can do computer stuff. The kids are all pretty broad in terms of characterization and performance. So far, they're all at least likable, which is not always a given in Star Wars canon.
What did you do?
We're lost. Really lost.
Luckily, there's also some plot momentum to focus on in these first 2 episodes, with the kids literally stumbling into adventure and accidentally rocketing out of their otherwise peaceful and uneventful patch of the suburbs and up into space in a pirate ship. In what could be Skeleton Crew's cleverest hook, though, they don't leave that new Star Wars setting they spent so much time developing entirely behind. The deceptively boring suburban planet of At Attin is apparently home to some weird mysteries. It's all fun, if a little bare bones. Skeleton pun intended. Of course, how fun it will be over the course of the season, and if it earns another one, unlike The Acolyte and The Book of Boba Fett, is going to depend entirely on whether or not Skeleton Crew can maintain a good balance between the space adventure and the kids having opportunities to act like actual kids. If the action is too intense, it loses the breezy, family-friendly appeal of a show primarily about kids. If the kids are too childlike and annoying, then it becomes a show about a robot babysitter. And that sounds lousy.
Sit down, student.
Speaking of Robot Babysitter, the ship that the kids accidentally hijack has a single crew member, a broken down pirate droid named SN-33, who is voiced by Nick Frost and hits a slightly discordant comedic note.
And mountains where none dare to go.
Skeleton Crew already has an endearingly groany sense of humor about piracy, with every glimpse into the universe of Star Wars' space pirates being stuffed with more cartoonish imagery than the average mini golf course. Everybody has a hook hand, or a peg leg, or a yar accent, or a helmet that looks like a tricorn sailor hat. We haven't properly met the pirate villains yet, but at least one of the Buccaneers was even part of Gorian Shard's pirate crew in The Mandalorian's 3rd season. After all that, it's literally naming a character after a famous Disney pirate that's too cute by a parsec. If there's one notable issue in these early episodes beyond that groan, it's that everything outside of the practical set of the kid's spaceship feels very filmed in the volume. The virtual set technology used on The Mandalorian and other Star Wars shows. It looks nice, and it encourages more interesting, all-digital sets than what you would have seen in The Phantom Menace, but it always feels hollow and empty. Just big, vacant expanses of Star Wars that lack the gritty, lived-in feel of the original trilogy it's emulating. And while there's no reason to doubt that we'll have some flashy space action at some point, there's not much to speak of thus far.
Tomorrow's test will set the course of your entire future.
The way it stands now, after these first 2 episodes, there's a lot of good momentum carrying Star Wars Skeleton Crew forward after it's set up the Goonian space cast of kids who escape the suburban doldrums and find themselves hurtling towards adventure and conflict with cartoonish space pirates. This show will actually have to pay off its foreshadowed mysteries in a satisfying way if it hopes to leave us with something half as memorable as its inspiration. But the fact that there seems to be a story justification for the 80s nostalgia bait aesthetics it slathers on is a good sign for things to come.
Dad.
This is unacceptable. Do you understand?
For more, check out our reviews of Arcane Season 2 and Dune Prophecy. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
Come on, kid. Pay up. Whoa. Where'd you two find an Old Republic credit?